character arc for you?
So, I would say, like, I was hypoglycemic, and I think I was as a kid. I grew out of it. So, whenever my blood sugar would drop, I would either become a psychotic, crying, raging child bitch, or I'd pass out. So, I just had to eat constantly. And I would get palate fatigue, and as an adult, I know that word. It's when you get tired of the same flavor. So, I just learned how to start making my own flavors. And by the time I was 10 years old, I was feeding my friends and family, like, coming home from work and feeding dinner and stuff. And as I got bored of flavors, I also started experimenting with different ingredients. And one thing that anybody in my family will always tell you is the time that they came home and it smelled really good in the house. Like, oh my God, like, smells so good. What are you making? I was like, oh, I'm making lamb stock. They're like, oh, that's so cool. I was like 12.
Wow.
What 12-year-old makes lamb stock? So they go and they, like, open up the pot and there's, like, a face staring at them with teeth. Because I found a lamb's head available to buy at the store. I was like, well, that's cool. So I just bought the whole sheep's head or lamb's head or whatever so I can make some stock. And then my family freaked out because they opened up the pot and there was teeth staring at them.
That's understandable for a 12-year-old because it's like, is this a dog? Like, I imagine, like, when they don't know where food comes from.
But they said it smelled good, okay? But,
right.
So they still talk about that. They're just like, yeah, we knew she was going to be a chef when we, like, came home and it smelled good, but you open up and there's a face inside. And I was like, look, I didn't know that I could buy an entire animal's head at the store.
Right.
Turns out you can, and when you have money as a 12-year-old, you're just like, this was $2.
Right.
I couldn't buy anything else. So I bought a sheep's head and I made soup.
Wow.
And then, yeah, I just started, like, kind of playing around and experimenting, and kind of the rest is history. I would say that chef life chose me. I did not choose a chef life.
You just gave me the language because I get palate fatigue as well. Because I cook all of my meals, and as much as I like to say that it's because of the income that we're at, truthfully, even when we make a lot more, I still cook all of my meals with the exception of, like, going out every now and again. But throughout the week, Sunday through Sunday, it's like breakfast, lunch, dinner, all of that was home cooked. And meal prep doesn't work for me because meal prep means at least for 2 or 3 days, that's the same meal. And I'm already tired just even thinking about it. And I just thought that was just me being like, you know, a little bougie or a little stush. And I almost get offended when it's like, this again. Like,
yeah, well, actually, the way that I work around that when I was in university and stuff is I would do meal prep, and then I would portion out the proteins and freeze them. And then, and I would do that every week. So each week, like, you have a large pot or 2 large pots of something, and then you just label them in the freezer in portions. So, like, when the next week comes around, you break off every other day or every other meal with one of the frozen proteins, and then you just cook a starch.
And then that's the variety.
Mm-hmm.
So does anyone else in your family cook? Or were you the flagship?
My grandparents cooked a lot growing up, and my mother did. Like, I'm half Swedish and half black. Like, my Auntie Chatter, like, always cooked for the holidays. And we didn't have the traditional, like, what do you guys eat in America? Ham and turkey and...
I don't eat that.
Neither do I. So I grew up with seafood gumbo and collard greens and baked mac and cheese on the holidays. And then my Swedish side, we had, like, meatballs and pickled herring.
Pickled herring.
So I got pickled herring in the fridge right now. I will feed it to you. So, like, I never grew up with, like, the ham and the... What's that nasty one? Green bean casserole. Like, stuffing. Didn't have stuffing till I was an adult.
I'm going to go ahead and say that I don't understand the functional purpose of casserole.
A shepherd's pie, I understand. Right?
I do like shepherd's pie.
Yeah, but a casserole, I don't understand. And, like, it's a whole thing. You watch these American movies, and casserole is, like, a whole Caucasian culture.
Yeah.
But I don't know what a casserole actually is. Like, what's a tuna casserole?
I don't know what like what we're trying to accomplish, you know what I mean? Because, like, when I look at a meal and, like, being Jamaican, everything's a stew. If it's not, like, street food and I can walk around with it, it's a stew. Even if I bake chicken in the oven, it came out with sauce, like, in there. And that was always, like, a proponent of it. And everything's, like, melt off the bone and, like, that's the texture we like. You're like, cool, here's my protein. Here's my sauce. Here are my flavors. Then I gotta have rice. It's gonna soak it up. Then I'm gonna put dumplings. That's gonna soak it up. I might put plantains. And, like, I see the role everybody's playing.
And they're like, oh, if you layer it and bake it together, that's the same thing. I think is a casserole layered?
And then who can say?
I've never had a casserole.
Who can
I don't even know.
I've looked at it and I've drew my conclusions.
I know what a green bean casserole looks like. I've never eaten one because overcooked green beans, they smell bad to me. And then
they do smell
add
bad.
some, what is it, marshmallows to that or whatever? Like
see, that's advanced. That's advanced for me.
No, I think that's what they put on their sweet potatoes is the marshmallows, and I think they put cream of mushroom soup on their. Anyways, I'm just gonna not. I didn't grow up with that food, and I'm good.
I would just literally see it on Disney Channel, or like every now and again you get invited to like a friend's Thanksgiving, and you kind of know you're not really gonna eat.
I always offer to make the gravy. Because even if their shit tastes like shit,
you can just
cover it in gravy. Because I celebrated Christmas in Australia, and I got invited to a friend's Christmas, and I'm not even gonna mention what
we're not even gonna say names.
We're not gonna say names, and I'm not gonna mention what they did or did not do
because they don't deserve it.
I still like them as human beings,
right? That's the hard part.
But I was like, you know what? Let me just help out a little bit. Like, no, we're offering you. I was like, cool. Let me just make the gravy. So I made a brown butter turkey gravy, like caramelized brown butter turkey gravy with like fresh sage. It was delicious, and nothing else had flavor. So you just at all like salt was like
optional. That's the thing that.
So I'm like, but because I made the gravy, everything's salvageable with gravy. So if I'm going to a friend's house for Christmas or Thanksgiving, and they are of the colonizer descent, they tend not to have a lot of flavor.
Yeah.
In any of their food. So I make the gravy.
I had a kind of monumental cooking moment with, being Jamaican, but growing up in the States, like, my cooking is highly influenced by all of the times I went to the DeKalb Farmers Market by myself. And I started playing with the recipes that I grew up on in Jamaica. So I started doing, like, ackee and saltfish and adding like raw veggies on top to add like texture. Things that I would probably never post online, but that's what I was doing. And we had Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner. It was like the holidays at my aunt's in Canada's, and I was like making what I knew how to make. I made this salad that I found on the Food Network, like where they would just be like, this is what I'm making in this kitchen set today. And it was like no competition shows out yet. Like I used to like binge watch those shows, and the chef made a curry pear carrot salad.
Mm-hmm.
And that blew my little teenage mind because I was like, you could just season fruits? Like, it's just like, what? And so I took that and like put like kind of like Jamaican play on it and served it. And it also blew my mind that you could have, because salad for us, for my people, is like we're gonna put some romaine lettuce and tomato and like we're gonna look at it and then we're gonna eat the stew. Like salads were not like this integral part of like the dinner table. So seeing a salad,
although it grows in Jamaica, I mean it's more fruits and vegetables. It's not as much leafy greens there, right?
Yeah, and it's also like we have to cook everything down. So like you're not seeing a ton of raw stuff just being served if it's not a fruit or if it's not a tropical fruit. So it's not in the zeitgeist, I guess you could say. And so I thought it was mind-blowing that you could make salads without leafy greens. I thought it was mind-blowing that you could make salad that wasn't like a fruit salad that came in like a cup. And the curry powder, it was like, she really fucked the game up for me. And so I tried it. I did like shaved carrots, which is also like, what are you doing? Like, I had so many doubters. Like, my uncle and my aunt and like my parents were like, oh, what's she gonna do? Oh, what's she? Like, they were openly talking shit in the kitchen. And I just stuck to my guns because I was like, trust me, like, this is gonna add a fresh component to, we've got oxtail over here, we've got stewed chicken over there, we've got rice and peas, we've got fried dumplings. What we need is this gorgeous Caribbean salad. And the shock on their face when they all had the salad, like, it's those little moments where you're like, do I love, am I obsessed? Like,
I always say my favorite reaction to my food is anger. when somebody like tries something and they're like, "Shut the fuck up!" Like I'm like, my favorite reaction.
That is so good.
Like it's like everyone's like, "Oh my god, this is delicious." It's like, yeah, okay, cool, but like when somebody literally puts something in their mouth and they just get like visibly angry.
Yeah.
Favorite reaction.
Because you changed their lives fundamentally.
Yeah.
Like we all have good food. We're like, this is good. But when you just can't handle the emotions in your body, so it just calcifies as anger.
That's my
when you
favorite emotion in my food. It's just like, yes, that is. But that's it's always fun when you're taking people that grew up on a very specific food, introducing them to new cultures or new ways of doing their own food.
Yeah.
And kind of like throwing it all to the wind. Be like, no, try something different, but like adjacent.
Yes.
And that's like the best way to introduce people to new ingredients, new food, new combinations. And as a traveling chef myself, like that is how I introduce people to new things. Is like, okay, try this, but like your food adjacent. Like when I had a lot of clients in the more inland, they're like, oh, steak and potatoes and chicken, steak and potatoes and chicken. I was like, okay, well, how about steak and potatoes and chimichurri? And they're like, oh, what's that?
And now they're like, we're fancy.
Yeah.
We're like, they think they're going out on a limb.
And I'm just like, they're like, oh, like we really want this like roast chicken. I was like, cool. What about duck? And they're like, ooh, maybe.
Right.
And I'm like, it's like chicken but dark meat. I was like, it's like a whole chicken of dark meat, but like
everything.
And they're like, oh, okay. So like, I had to like introduce them to like the adjacent version. I'll make like duck à l'orange, which is like a super traditional French dish. I'm like, this is the best thing I've ever had. I'm like, try something different, please, thank you.
I love.
And I had to leave there because I was like, I was so tired of steak and potatoes. Even if it was steak, potatoes, and chimichurri, I was like, I gotta move. I gotta move where clients like sushi. And I moved like, an hour away. And now everyone here is like a lot more
open.
Yeah, here in Long Beach, closer to LA. Not in LA.
So one thing I know about you is, and your entity, kind of like the whole, not just your cooking, but just how you move through the world, is that you have so much range. How do you hold capacity for all of the layers, all of the experiences? Because, and I ask this question because people don't like that. Like people can't handle when you've got reach and depth. So how do you handle that?
It's the same way I handle when people ask me what my favorite food to cook is. I say, I let the seasons tell me. So the range, it depends on what's growing in the area, and what's growing depends on what the farmers are offering. So, and what I'm doing, like if tomatoes are going to be highlighted, I'm probably going to go for Italian. If it's root vegetables of like beetroots and things like that, then I'm probably going to go more Scandinavian French in my tradition. If it's not that kangaroo is ever in season, but like, if it's more of the more fragrant greens like mint and basil and things like that, then I'm probably going to go more like Asian style Vietnamese. And so I just let the seasons and the farmers and what they actually have to offer, fresh and in season, that's nutrient dense, tell me what I'm cooking. And whatever that is where I'm guided. I do always ask my clients, like, what nuance of food is your favorite? And then I'll take that idea. Because I can't just be like, oh yeah, I could do anything, tell me what you want. I'm just like, what is your favorite? If you're going out to eat, what's your go-to restaurant? And if they say pizza, I'm like, cool, so you like Italian food and you like carbs. And then I kind of like base that off, and then like I guide them to a fancier option that I want to do within the season that I want to do it. Or within whatever season we're in. Because like, if like, oh, I really like pasta with chicken Alfredo, I was like, cool, I'm not doing that. I will not do that. I was trained in Italy and I lived with Italians. That's not an Italian dish.
They won't talk to me anymore.
But I can make you like this with this, and this is in season, so I can highlight this. And they're like, oh, that sounds beautiful. That sounds awesome. I just convince them to do whatever I want. But I find their boundaries. Yeah. And then I play within them. And like I slowly start to like take away one boundary and like add another, and like slowly taking away, and like in their mind. So I don't have the depth and the spectrum are actually very encased in seasonal and locality.
So what season is Charlie in right now?
I mean, right now it is spring here. And with me shaving my head for my birthday and really just like shedding the old and bringing in the new, Charlie is also in the spring season of springing forward and becoming anew. This winter has been very dormant of rebirth and renewal by like going inward, which is like very of the season. Also like very much what I'm doing. I'm no longer like cooking for my job. I've quit cooking. I'm only teaching, and I'm writing my first book. But I'm teaching cooking, of course.
Yes.
I'm teaching cooking and foraging. But I don't have clients anymore. I'm no longer restaurant consulting. I'm just trying to take my activism and my art and my passion for sustainability and close-knit communities and earth, and trying to see how I can do that without having to cook for every dollar.
Have to produce for everything.
Yeah, I'm tired of producing for every dollar. I want to inspire.
Yeah. And the impact of that is so much, because something I've noticed in hospitality, and I ran up against this a lot. It's like, I think serving and cooking would be so much more fun if people really, really appreciated the food. If people really appreciated the act of giving. Like, if they actually felt like the same feeling when you go to somebody's house and they make something for you. If it's edible, you're like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like, you're just so grateful because you're like, wow, that's my friend. They cooked for me. They did this for me. They invited me, especially nowadays where it's just so hard to bring people together. I feel like if that's what it felt like, I'd be a waiter right now. Like, I would just be at a better restaurant. Like, but it's not that. It turns into, what can you do for me? You got to do what I want. And this power dynamic has shifted, and the appreciation is not there. And so then I don't feel like, oh, I'm passionate about food. I feel like I'm in service, not hosting.
Yeah.
Not
It's
inviting.
not hospitality.
Yeah.
It's servitude.
Servitude versus service. Like,
yeah.
When you're in service, you're in your purpose, and I think our purpose, like, is like one of those little, I don't know if you see like those little, like, they're not dandelions. Are they dandelions? Those little, like, flowers that they blow in the wind, and the little, yeah.
Ones? I don't know what they're called.
They're
not edible. If they're not edible, I don't know what it is. I like,
kids love them.
Yeah, those are also weed, but they're not, as far as I know, an edible weed, so I don't know.
You just pick them up and you just blow on them and they go everywhere. I feel like that's what our purpose is. Like, I feel like it's
to spread our knowledgeable seeds.
To spread our, like, what we have to offer, and it's very temporary and it's very seasonal, and then you find more and you do that because it's like very much so this like discovery process, and then you share it. And I feel like in the wind, and it goes, and then if it lands on you, you pretty much know that it came from somewhere else. So to me, those moments make me feel super connected, just like as a living entity, like in this world. And I think that's what being in service is. It's like, I picked up this thing, might just be for now, and I'm sharing it. And it gives me a sense of, I know why I'm here just in this moment, and I might pick up another one and share that. And that feels like purpose, versus servitude feels like
somebody going,
yes.
You're just like, I'm good.
It's non-consensual, right? It's even if I consented to work here, it's like that moment is non-consensual. It's like, we can decide we're going to go on a date, but there's still every moment, it's moment by moment, it's consent. And so that's the thing that I think hospitality is missing, is that moment by moment, like, respecting your agency, respecting your time, respecting like how you decide to manage your energy. That's something that I just wished was like systematically ingrained in hospitality.
Oh, I mean, I wish it was systematically ingrained in all business and our government and our day to day.
Yeah.
When they talk about like our society is built up on the 24-hour cycle, which is the masculine cycle, when instead of the feminine cycle or the female cycle, which is a 1 month or seasonal. Everything, including the plants and animals and everything we eat, goes dormant to grow bigger and stronger the next season. But if you're just going, as they do with like these crops that they just overproduce, it's each generation becomes more and more depleted of nutrients and of value. And that's pretty much what we've become in society, because we just have to keep going, producing, or the hustle, as they call it, the hustle culture of capitalism. And that hustle culture is idolized rather than scrutinized.
Yeah.
And I don't like coming from like obviously a point of privilege where I have a roof over my head and I can pay my bills, it's exhausting. And I've lived in multiple countries where you don't have to keep a roof over your head. You don't have to hustle to keep a roof over your head. You can just exist. And it's just not like that here.
Yeah.
I moved back to America a couple years ago, and it's been one of the hardest cultural shocks I've ever had to come back to, because I was gone for 12 years.
Yeah.
And now I'm back here, and I'm like, wow, land of the free is false advertising.
Absolutely. Coming from Jamaica to the States, watching, it's like, yes, there wasn't the opportunity, but I think the biggest false advertising was where success comes from. You know, I was told, and I think people who don't have success have a lot of theories about why they don't have it. They're like, it's because I'm not educated. It's because I can't read. It's because, like, literally, right?
Look at our president. That doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Like, I talk about this with Tabari all the time, where I was like, yes, reading is important, and I would never, ever deny that. But I think you can absolutely get away with not being able to read. And many people do. And you can be successful with not being able to read. So we were told it's because you're this, all the ways in which we're not good enough. Then it's like, what do? We go, oh, I'll get educated. I'll get multiple degrees. I will get the job. I'll do da-da-da. You get in those spaces.
Now you're overqualified for this job. You're asking too much of a salary to do this job because you have too many degrees. It doesn't matter if you're educated because this job still doesn't want you. Also, like, even if you got that job, you're still going to be in debt because now your student loans are so high that you're never going to get out of them for the next 30 years because your job will never pay you enough despite how many degrees you have.
And your manager doesn't have half the qualifications.
Your manager doesn't have half the qualifications.
Their manager has even less, because the reason why they bumped up was because they went out and got beers with the right people.
It's about who you know.
Right? And I remember being in high school trying to get involved in more activities, mainly to get out of the house. But my parents were like, this is a waste of time. And I was like, you don't understand that, like,
educating yourself isn't the way to get forward in this current society. You have to educate yourself through human connection.
I have to build these relationships. I was like, are you going to get me an internship? No. Then I need to start making friends. I need to start joining these clubs. I need to find mentors, because y'all, no shade, cannot help me navigate this system.
Well, they didn't grow up here.
They didn't. And they had the complete wrong idea about what it would be. It's one thing to kind of come to a place and go, I know I don't have this, and here are the things that I need. They had the complete wrong homework assignment.
But that's not their fault. It's what we were told, that to be successful, you have to go to college, you have to get a degree, you have to do this. And it's like, this 12-year-old on TikTok makes more money than me.
They're playing a completely different game. They're getting their kids into these roles. They are using relationships to get in. They're using their fraternities to get in. It's
nepotism.
Like, if literally everything is who you know, why are you telling me, as a justification of my oppression, that the reason I'm experiencing this hardship is because I'm not smart enough or good enough, when you know that that's not even the game you're playing? It's kind of like divide and conquer, like if we're fighting amongst ourselves.
100%. In every aspect of this culture. And that's one thing that I really try to teach through connection to land and community.
Yeah.
Is let's go for a walk. Let's see what grows in our neighborhood. Let's see what's edible. And we'll come together and we'll, like, I'll be talking about a lemon tree in someone's front yard, because as long as it's hanging over the fence, it's legal to take. And most of the time, the neighbors will come out and be like, oh my God, can you take some more? I have so many. But then you build a connection with that person. And then you're like, oh, I would love to come by once a week to, like, you know, grab some from my local neighbors. Whatever, just like building community. But we have systematically been separated from our land, from our community, and our farmers through, like, since like the 60s, 70s or whatever. Like, oh, the way to get ahead in life is to, you know, go to college, move away from your friends and family, go to these big cities, like, you know, Industrial Revolution, all this other stuff. So we separated ourselves, started buying our food from the grocery stores. We don't know the farmer who's growing them. They put a distributor in the middle. That distributor makes most of the money. The farmer's poor and you're poor.
Yeah.
And the distributor makes the money. So we've been systematically separated from our community, from our connections, from our society, and from our own health system. And all that can be solved by taking a walk, talking to your neighbors, and talking to your local farmer. while the people that are in power doing all these things are staying connected. Because that's how they're staying in power.
So they know the power of community.
And they separated all of us from our land, from our community, from our connection.
Yeah.
And then made us systematically hate one another because of skin color.
Right.
Or because of culture, or because of religion, or anything. So, yeah, it's a divide and conquer. And it's done so precisely and systematically.
Yeah.
And so long ago that we think it's like, oh, yeah, well, it's normal to hustle. It's like, is it though?
Right.
Like, it's not. It's
There's
actually
no
not
normal, actually. It's just whatever we accept.
Exactly. It's like, just because it's normalized. I mean, slavery was normalized.
Right.
The hustle that the slaves had to do, that was normalized.
Somebody being like, I shouldn't be here was like, clench my pearls. Like, oh my God. Getting paid.
Like, this is your job.
Are you,
it's like, well, like, this is your role in the society, is to be this. Like, what, am I supposed to pick my own cotton?
Right.
How am I going to get clothes? It's like, but we don't question the status quo when the status is working for us.
Yes.
So the way to change that is where the status is working for us, where we do have a roof over our heads, where we have the privilege of not being in the hustle culture in society, is to question the society that is benefiting us because of the hustle culture or whatever. Yeah. And just really just break it down and reconnect. And I think education and connection is the only way to do that in every single aspect, including our nutrition, our mental health, our physical health, our community, our everything.
I think the first seed that I can remember that got planted about the power of community and the intentionality of our separation was, I was watching like a documentary like in college for a sociology class, and the documentary was about a group of refugees that came in from a war-torn country. I don't remember which, but they were very, very tall, very dark-skinned, mostly men. And they lived prior to the war in great lives, like very off the grid, but like wanting for nothing. And so they came to the United States and didn't know how to navigate, like didn't know what running water was, like didn't know, like, what do you mean I push this button and the light comes on? Like didn't know how any of those, so they had to learn how to shower, how to flush a toilet. Like they had to learn all these key functions. And I was like, oh shit, like we're really coming from a different world. And they walk together in huge groups, like groups of 15 and 20, because that's what they would do from their birth country. And so there was like these liaisons, if you will, like program managers that helped them acclimate to like first world living. And they would tell them, hey, you can't really travel in a group of like 20 like that, because people will find it threatening. And they're like, but this is what we always do. Like they couldn't like, they're like, what do you mean I can't wear shoes? Like it was like that, like, and I remember at the time, probably 18, 19, when I watched this, I was like, huh, that's interesting. But yeah, you can't walk around in a group of 20 unless you're on a pub crawl. And it's like, now thinking,
and who's on pub crawls?
That part. And
it's not, even if it was a group of people of color on a pub crawl, they're not going to be treated as that.
They're not going to be seen.
They're going to, if you have a group of 20 people, of people of color walking into a bar, people in that bar will feel like that level of threat. Yes. Even if they were on a pub crawl. Yeah. It's only when it's a group of white bachelorettes. Right. Or fucking white bachelors, or like a group of like white college students that they're allowed to do that.
They're allowed to do that, but you cannot do that in broad daylight. And I find it so interesting that it seems that the first thing they do is dismantle community, because they do that for safety. And I even think about that just even with women, like navigating the physical world of like, that could be easily solved if like you never caught a woman walking around alone. That could be easily solved if women like just systematically lived in groups of 10, or like lived, and even apartments will be like, head count, only 2 of y'all can live here. Like it just at every level in every industry, they're like, no congregating. And I find that so interesting, because as soon as you congregate, you start to compare notes. You start to be like, what happened to you? What happened to you? What happened to you? Oh, they're paying, like, and then the whole, it's like, you're like, it's a masterful system.
The veil comes down and everyone is seen for exactly what they are. But they do congregate on the golf course.
Oh, 100%.
They do congregate at the country clubs. Yes. But who's congregating? The people that are still connected to their communities, because their communities is like this nepotism. Yeah. So they're allowed to do it.
But
right?
you can't.
But you can't.
And my thing too, this is what my theory, as just like a sociologist, a student of sociology, as a Black woman, my theory is that Black liberation, or just any group that has experienced oppression on a systematic level, they can sort of completely circumvent that if the privileged groups totally disengaged. Just totally disengaged. It's like in the case of race. If white people just continued on, like,
leave us alone.
No DEI, no nothing. Fine. That's cool. Leave us alone. How about that? Leave us alone. Right? No. They have to make sure their foot is on your neck. Because when you look at the active intentionality, not only in policies, not only in just kind of social rules like no congregating.
So like queer people. Use queer people for an example. It's like, okay, well, I could be out here married, me and my wife, whatever, and like him and his husband, and then we decide to have babies together, and you know, we do our lives or whatever, and then like, you know, his husband's boyfriend is in drag and reading to our kids in our neighborhood. As long as these white Christians didn't come in, we would be just happy.
It'd be fine.
Like, leave us alone.
But they don't leave us alone.
Like, they literally, like, ban drag queens reading to kids in, like, 5 or 6 plus states right now.
Yeah.
How many of the actual population is that?
It's
versus
also...
how many cops have raped people.
Right.
Versus how many congressmen are literally, like, have active, like, rape allegations against them right now.
Right now.
Versus how many priests have touched little boys and girls. Like, okay, so what's the actual problem? Because it's not the drag queens. It's not the 0.01% of trans people in fucking sports.
Right.
It's the fact that, like, you won't leave us the fuck alone. That is why I live in Long Beach as well. Because it is queer and it's diverse. And everybody else is just right on the other county line in Orange County. Over there.
It is interesting, too, to think, because that, whenever, you know, my friends, we have these kind of conversations. We're, like, voice noting. And this is the system, like, that's, like, right, the life of a POC. At least for me. And it's so interesting to me because it's, like, they know our power. That's why when people tell me, like, Neysa, you're so self-assured, I feel like I got that self-assurance from my negative experiences, because nobody's going to rob an empty home, right? Something's in there of value. Why do they want to take? Because we have something of value. Why do they want to separate? Because stronger we are together. It's like, it is like simple math to me. And so I'm like, if you're threatened and you've got everything and I have just like a couple of my little tools and that is threatening to you, maybe my couple little things that I have going on is like more than enough. More than enough to circumvent everything that they have stacked in their favor, so much so that they don't even want me to have just my little corner. And I'm like, maybe I have a lot more than a corner. Maybe that's a lot.
Well, like Black Wall Street got burnt down, even though it was of no threat to the white people. They just saw Black people doing their own thing and being successful.
Money.
They're like, oh no, we can't have that.
Right.
It's like, what?
So here's something about you that's like people don't understand, and people need to understand. You are like, you speed things up. And like anyone that it's like you have this force around you, and if you enter the force, you're getting sped up too. So I noticed that, like, we were walking around in Santa Monica when you came to come hang out with us, and I was like, my world doesn't move like this. My world doesn't open up like you're like, oh, it was almost like it was your town. Like, it was almost like, and mind you didn't know anybody. This was not your town. It was not your hometown. But everything opened up, and like random people were talking to us.
I mean, I do also get white privilege.
But it's deeper than that, because I hang out with my white friends too. It's not like that. Like, nobody's like interrupting. Nobody's like, come on in. Like, I feel like we could have knocked on someone's house and been like, what y'all making? And they would have been like, come on, grab a plate. Like,
I've done that.
Right.
I'd be like, oh, that smells good over there. Like, oh, you think it smells good? Come on over.
Like, you have this, like, thing. We walked into the community garden. The lady was like, I'm not supposed to do this. Come on in. She was just letting us do whatever we want. And it was just how it felt like to me was like all these doors that were typically closed that I didn't even entertain trying to open. You just pop them open like, oh, there's not even a lock on here. You just never even, tried the handle. Like you just never even attempted to walk through. Why do you think you were like that?
Well, I think a large part is the white privilege I get from having such light skin and then growing up being seen as that. Knowing that I'm not going to get racially profiled going into these spaces, but also being, I'm like, what do they call Zendaya? The model minority.
Mm.
So they're like, oh, she's different, but she's also palatable. And I do get that, and I do have that, and I use it. Because why not? If I'm going to live in a systematically oppressed area, fuck it. Why am I not going to use what I do have?
Right.
To introduce and bring along those who walk behind me or walked in front of me.
Right.
I between like being queer, but being like, well, not so much anymore with the shaved head and the nose ring, but like being straight passing.
Yeah.
Getting into these spaces and like being white passing in certain spaces where honestly a lot of that has caused me a lot of harm being in spaces if I were to speak up that I'm like, no, I'm actually a person of color, actually I'm queer, whatever. So that is one way, but also I didn't realize that as well, so thank you for saying that. At the end of the day, the worst answer you can get is a no.
Yeah.
For a lot of things. So why not ask? Why not ask if you can come in? Why not see if that door is locked? She's like, okay, well, I don't know. Oh shit, it's open. Like,
yeah.
Let me just. Oh fuck.
Yeah.
Like you said, you never thought to open the doors. Well, just try them, see what happens.
I think that's my favorite thing, and I definitely get what you're saying because I have that in my accent. I have that in my voice where it's like, for people who are just on the line of like, I don't really, I'm not that conscious. I don't really have POC friends, or I'm not really out of my circle. I'm often the bridge for them. I don't enjoy it.
Because of your voice.
Yeah, because of my voice. Because it's like, I think it's a class thing. I think it's an education thing. I think it's like, something they recognize. And,
it's like duck and chicken.
Right. Like growing up in Connecticut and, when they don't hear a Southern accent, when they don't hear like whatever the sound is that they expect, the guard comes down, and sometimes it comes a little way too down, and you're like, bring that guard back up, girl, because that was out of pocket. But, to your point, I do use what I have. But there is something about, I feel like every time I catch up with you, you're like, this amazing thing happened. Like, there is, like, you are like not just like a powerful manifester, but a fast one. And that's like something that always stood out to me. Like this book that you wrote.
Tying into what we were talking about, like about rebuilding community, about connecting, about the power of many, and why they systematically broke that down in order to keep their community on top, right?
Yeah.
Their community being the community that it is. My book, The Culinary Rebellion, takes the idea of rebelling against the status quo and rebuilding those connections to like communities and farms, to neighbors, to food and land, to seasons and self. And so my book is like, I always say it's a third educational, a third foraging and urban foraging, plant identification, and a third cookbook. So I want to be able to take this book and like kind of go on, for lack of better connections, TED Talks.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
To educate people, to teach you how to, through community connection and food and the culinary system, rebel against the current government. But through doing that, you're rebelling against big ag. You're rebelling against big pharma. You're rebelling against the government that has systematically taken away your connection to land, community, and neighbors. And by talking to your neighbors about their lemon tree, by offering your nasturtium or woolgo greens, be like, like just trading them.
Yeah.
A lot of my neighbors around here are from India, so like it always smells really good. And then I'll be out here barbecuing like jerk chicken or something. They'll be like, oh, what's that? I'd be like, oh yeah, I heard you smell it. And then, you connect and then you start to talk, right? And then By eating seasonally and eating from your local farmers, you're naturally getting a more nutrient-dense diet, which means you can come off of the high blood pressure medication because you're no longer eating these highly processed foods.
Right.
By connecting closer to your land and your food system of where you currently reside, or understanding like your cultural like body's needs and eating seasonally, our bodies want what is in season.
Yes.
And what is in season is going to have more nutrients in it. If you're eating a tomato in the middle of winter, it's not going to taste like anything,
right,
because it has no nutrients.
Yeah.
It was grown indoors. But if your neighbor or the farmer down the street has cabbage, that cabbage is going to be packed with so much vitamin C. And so you're healing your body, you're healing your community, and you're doing it all through like sharing a plate, sharing with your neighbors, and like reconnecting to land. And so that's what, well, yeah, my book is called The Culinary Rebellion, and hopefully I come out with that sooner rather than later. And it also helps you identify the plants that you can walk around your neighborhood and not realize that you're walking past so much food that you're walking past to go to the grocery store to purchase.
Right.
And it just grows.
Yeah.
And I'm like, living in Southern California, I refuse to pay for citrus. We have so much citrus. We have grapefruits. We have oranges. We have cuties. We have lemons everywhere. If you're paying for citrus, you're not talking to a neighbor.
Yeah.
You're not walking down the street. Like,
you live in downtown LA.
You live in downtown LA. But in downtown LA, depending on where you live, of course, you have to think about the water systems and all that stuff, which I will talk about in my book, is think about where the water from that plant is growing on. Yeah. If it has potential pea on it, it has pea on it. Just assume that. But in LA, you have a lot of bay leaf trees.
Yeah.
Like fresh bay leaf trees growing everywhere. People don't know. They're like, oh, it's a tree with leaves. It's like, that's just a bay leaf tree. Or it's a banana tree.
Yeah.
Or it's got dates. Like, so the trees are a really good indicator of what is actually possible. But that's also why in what they call like the ghettos, it's a concrete jungle, and they take away the ability for things to grow there. Yes. And they put in liquor stores rather than grocery stores.
Yeah.
They systematically keep people oppressed, and those people need to leave in order to get things. So whatever ends up becoming convenient is a convenient store, which doesn't have any fresh food in it.
The theme that keeps coming back is separation. Separation from community, separation from wellness, and separation from your own identity.
And they do it through food.
And the antidote is
connection,
community, belonging, and now we're back to identity.
So the Culinary Rebellion is about rebelling against the separation, coming together through sharing a plate and food, and rebuilding our communities and ourselves and our identities through the diversity of the cultures that we all share together.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with like, oh, we share a background, we share a cultural background, whatever. It has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
It's about sharing the land that we're currently on, and the people who foster that land and grow food, and the community that lives around us, and coming together through that. That also, like, if you're afraid of your neighbor because of X, Y, and Z reason, well, if you talk to them and like give them a lemon, you know, like, then there's that understanding, and that bringing togetherness is what takes away the fear and what brings together the culture and the community, and then everybody eats. It's like
it brings you back into your body.
Yeah.
It brings you back into the somatic experience of trusting your own truth. And I think that's where bigotry comes from, is like the distance and separation again from what you know to be true, which is, this is fine. Like, this is a human. Like, we both have, you know, whatever the things you connect with. We both have kids. We both like the same things. We both, you know, have similar hobbies and interests.
We live on the same street. We live in the same neighborhood.
We have the same religion a lot of the times, but that separation keeps you from your own somatic truth. And it's so funny because it is a house of cards, because connection, and I think a lot of folks are like, how can I be a better ally? And how can I and I'm like, you don't have to read a book if you want to. That's always great. I love research. I love to read. But to me, it's like trusting the good, trusting what you like, honest to God, energetically know is like rooted in that humanness. And it all comes from there. And when I see people who naturally embody that, you're like, see, I wouldn't call that person like a philosopher, the woke, misconscious, but they just kind of get it. Like, they just kind of know, oh.
They see through the veil.
They
the
see
veil
through
being the separation that has been forced upon us.
Yeah.
Since kids. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, separation is the problem, and community and togetherness is the solution. just like a casserole.
Except?
No, I'm just kidding.
We're not. That is the exception.
No, I meant to say like
no
not,
casserole.
I was like not like a casserole. We're not becoming one big mush. We're staying the plantains and the
Yes.
potatoes and the meat, and we're bringing it all together on a plate to make one big beautiful
to
plate
create
to share.
a dish, right? But everybody plays their part.
But if you just mix a bunch of stuff together and bake it, I think we need to
The
Google what a
metaphor
casserole
is working.
It's kind of working.
The metaphor is working.
I think it would work better if we knew what a casserole was.
I think everybody but us knows what a casserole really is.
But like,
I trust
it
the
comes in a
audience.
dish. There's a casserole dish. I know that. They're square.
There's gonna be somebody commenting like, "But you ain't have my mom's casserole." Is it? Keep it. We don't need it.
I'll take my pickled herring and langoustines.
I'll take my salted pigtails.
Your salted pigtails, man. But like, those are delicious though.
They're amazing.
I had a Romanian friend.
I'm looking for a plug right now.
Oh, I could probably find you one.
Find me, because it's hard. Because I called butchers. They're like, "Well, we got pigtails, but they're not salt." Because you know when they soak them in the salt water.
Yeah, but you could just do that.
Who has a Is it? Could I?
Yes.
Could I?
Yes. Open that door.
She did it again.
just do it yourself.
She did it again.
Just open that door.
She did it again.
You got salt and you got pigtails.
I could get.
And TikTok. Like,
I don't have TikTok.
Okay, well you got Google.
I know. I don't know why. I was like,
you got Jamaican people.
I'm always so scared.
You got a grandmother
to
maybe.
like do the thing that was like, because even just me even learning how to do pigtail stew was like, I've ascended into auntie era. Like it was like, where's my next tattoo? Where's the next mole gonna go? Like it was, and literally me going into that, because it's always in like a bucket, like a painter's bucket in the back, and everybody's looking at you like, what is she doing digging around in there? And you open it, and it's like, sometimes might not be anything in there, because they whoever has it, they don't always do it. I've never consistently seen it anywhere. It's always like, here are the 3 places it might possibly be, and you go and you're like, and it's filled with pigtails in this brine basically of just salt water, and then they have a pair of tongs, and who knows who touched those tongs? Who knows? It's very sketchy. And they have a little bag.
You have salt, you have water, and you have the ability to get pigtails. So you can just make it. It's really easy. It's really easy to make the things that these quote unquote savages of the Europeans, like colonization, had, that we consider our culture.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to food before refrigeration, it's really easy to make those things.
Yeah.
I make all my own seasonings.
This is literally the first time it's ever been recommended that I just salt my own pigtails.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever even, I'm sure I would say that. My dad would be like, what are you going to do? Like it's never even occurred.
Yeah.
To me to do that. This is what I mean.
Open the door. Just check.
I mean.
Just see what happens. Just Google. Just see what happens. And if it fails, it fails.
Right.
Research and development. Oh, look, I got like 5 continuous brew kombucha things in here. I aggressively failed my first ferments of everything. And so one person was like, oh, you just do this. Super simple. And I'm like, oh, shit. That is super simple.
You're the girl.
Yeah, it's super simple. Now I have more kombucha than I know what to do with because I don't sell it. Even though I should. But I don't want to make everything I do into a profit. Sometimes I just want the culture to survive and thrive.
Yeah. And now you know it.
And now whenever exactly, and I could share people the knowledge that I have of failure. Failure teaches you so much more than doing something right the first time.
And now every potluck, pigtails again, Neysa? Yes.
Yes. The one thing I have tried and failed and will not retry is making my own olives. That shit takes like 6 months, and you can still fail.
That's like kimchi.
No, kimchi takes like a week.
Kimchi? The girls are putting kimchi away for a year.
Yeah, you can. You don't have to.
But isn't that the way?
You could still get good kimchi in a week.
Mm.
But you can't get olives in a week.
No, there's no option.
There's no option. Yeah, there is an option. You put lye. Lye is a poison. But it speeds up the process of curing the olives. So I'm good. I will buy my olives.
How many of us have been personally victimized by lye?
I don't use lye. I use African black soap. I'll send you home with some, actually.
I would love that.